Welcome to Bold Voices, a production of the Community Foundation of Broward, where we explore Broward's biggest issues, get to know some of the people and organizations creating a bold impact in our community, and take a deeper dive into the world of local philanthropy with the experts at the Community Foundation of Broward. And now it's time to be bold.
Welcome to Bold Voices, a podcast production of the Community Foundation of Broward, improving lives every day and leading with love. I'm your host, Ellen Jaffe. The holidays are often called the season of giving. At the Community Foundation of Broward, I like to call it the season of sharing. It's really an apt name that indicates the kind of commitment and the community involvement that we see at the foundation. And it's not just from the employees, but from the donors, the fund holders, the community builders as well. And it's a lot more than just writing a check, which is great. I don't want to scare you away from that. But there's a personal connection that happens here with people who benefit from the generosity that's inspired by community members' passions. So this is why you see things like people supporting the Community Foundation's pledge to raise $200,000 to assist neighbors who've lost their SNAP benefits. Now, you combine that with participation from the foundation's community partners, and the result is close to $2 million, more than 2 million pounds of food being made available to our neighbors in need. And of course, none of this happens in a vacuum. The people at the Community Foundation of Broward are the key to the vision of leading with love. So on this episode of Bold Voices, we introduce you to Kelly Marmol, the Vice President of Philanthropic Services at the Community Foundation of Broward, and a passionate advocate for driving philanthropy to support education, social and economic mobility, the environment, and healthcare. I mean, those are like the key things, Kelly, that the Community Foundation supports. Welcome to Bold Voices. I'm so glad you have the time at this time of year to talk to us.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm so excited to be here.
You are just a wealth of knowledge, and I'm going to dig in there, talk about some of the benefits of year-end giving, legacy giving, how philanthropic giving can provide tax benefits. But first, I look at you and I say, you're one of these lucky people who's been able to combine your passion with your career. Can you tell us, what does your job as Vice President of Philanthropic Services at the Community Foundation entail? And how does that also satisfy that personal passion of yours?
You know, my counterpart in community impact often says that community impact is the heartbeat of the organization because they're the ones that are putting out the grants to the community. So if that's the case, then philanthropic services is the lifeblood. And I have the distinct honor and pleasure of leading a team of 10 frontline fundraisers, if you will, and donor services representatives that get out into the community and we meet with philanthropists. We match up their passions with their philanthropic giving. So in the process of doing that, we meet so many wonderful, caring, generous people that just want to make Broward better. They want to give of their resources, their time, their talent, their treasure to do good things for the community. And it feels so good to be able to facilitate that and make that happen for the people in Broward that are helping. So I have a background in education. I have a degree in education and a master's in education. I taught a little bit early on, but I quickly got into financial services, and then that led to my career in philanthropic services.
When you mentioned that you were in education, that kind of answers my next question, is that not only do you have to understand the financial sector and the tax advantages of philanthropy, but you have to have great people skills. You're talking to people about donating their money and legacy donating, and people who are representing their name with what they are giving. So the way you talk about it, it sounds like you have people who just want to do it. Like it's easy to make it happen.
Yeah. So when I was learning how to be a fundraiser, so to speak, I think the misconception is that the primary driver for people to be philanthropic is for tax purposes. But really the number one reason is because people want to make a difference. And I think here at the Community Foundation, we enable people to make a difference at whatever level they really want to impact, they can make a difference. So when we talk about the taxes and we get into like this year specifically, about 30% of all charitable donations come in towards the end of the year because people get towards the end of the year and their CPA might be saying to them, hey, you haven't made any donations this year. You need to get them in before the end of the year. But this year's kind of special because we have a new tax bill that will come into effect in 2026. And I'm sure people have heard a lot about it. It's been dubbed the OB3 or the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. And by the way, we don't give tax advice, so I encourage anybody to speak to their CPAs about this. But what we have gleaned from this bill from a lot of different sources that we've talked to and that professionals that have spoken to us about it is that there are really three things to think about with this new tax bill. So for individuals who do not itemize, the new tax law introduces an above-the-line deduction for $1,000 for individuals and $2,000 for couples. So if you go back to 2017 and the 2017 Tax Act, the standard deduction almost doubled. And so we saw actually 23 million taxpayers that switched from itemizing to just taking the standard deduction. So in 2018, that really impacted philanthropy to the tune of about $20 billion that was given by individuals because they were no longer able to itemize or get a tax benefit for those contributions. So now we have an above the line deduction for non-itemizers back in the tax bill, and this will be significant for philanthropy. Also, it creates inclusion for people to be philanthropic at any level. But these changes take effect in 2026, so they don't really impact giving that's going to happen right now in December. What's important to note right now is that changes in OB3 will impact philanthropic deductions for those who do itemize. Okay. So a new floor will take effect, and the floor is that only qualified deductions that exceed 0.5% of adjusted gross income will qualify for deduction. So in really simple terms, I can use a scenario here to explain that.
Yeah, please.
So let's just take Maria. She's a philanthropist. She has an adjusted gross income, AGI, of $80,000. She makes a charitable contribution during the year of $1,000. The charitable deduction floor of 0.5% of the AGI, calculated 0.5% of 80,000, equals $400. So that means that Maria can only deduct the portion of her donation that exceeds the $400. So the $400 is discounted away from her deduction. Only $600 would be deductible in Maria's case because the $400 doesn't count towards her charitable deduction, where in the past, before the floor came into play, the full $1,000 would have been deductible against her AGI.
Okay.
Here's another quick scenario, though. If your AGI is $50,000, a 0.5% floor would be $250. If you make a charitable donation of $200, that does not exceed the $250, so you don't even get to deduct that at all. That begins also in 2026. So it's really important for philanthropists to take advantage of the current tax law before December 31st. The way that can be done is they can bunch or bundle donations into 1 year. So let's say that they give normally like $50,000 a year. In 2025, before the end of the year, if they could put $150,000 into donations, and then that would carry them through a few years and they would get the full benefit without that 0.5% floor in this tax year. And that's where Community Foundation of Broward can be helpful in stewarding those funds and then keeping them safe and keeping them growing in our endowment until next year when they're ready to deploy their grants out to their nonprofits and in years forward. So that's one of the things that we've been talking to our philanthropists about is the idea of taking advantage of the current tax bill before December 31st to bunch their donations into a DAF here at the Community Foundation so that they can not have that 0.5% non-deductible piece.
So it will carry over year to year?
Once they make a donation into a DAF, they get the tax benefit today in 2025. And then in 2026, they wouldn't necessarily need to or have to make a donation if they didn't want to, but they could still be philanthropic out to the community in the form of grants using the money that they put in 2025. So they've bundled several years worth of contributions into 1 year. We would deploy it out over a few years.
And that's where you guys come in. And can you clarify what a DAF is?
Yes, it's a donor advised fund. And that's what we do here. A philanthropist or donor makes a donation to us, we create a fund in their name and they can pick the name, which is kind of fun. We have some really, really cool fund names. And then we will keep and steward those funds in our endowment. And then they can direct and advise on how they would like those charitable donations to be granted out to the community.
And what's so great is, for one thing, you've got the financial experts who can put the money into the fund and make it grow. So the principal is always there and it's always generating more interest, more income that becomes the endowments that go out. And the fact that you vet all of these nonprofits that you're granting funds to or that the donors are asking you to grant funds to.
Correct.
So what would the process be for someone who's interested and says, great, I'm going to do that and I'm going to go to the Community Foundation? How do you connect them with the people at the foundation who will then say, okay, what is your passion and how much do you want to give and who do you want to give it to?
We sit and meet with potential fund holders. We do extensive conversation about their interests, their passions, any different types of things that they want to make us aware of with regard to their philanthropy or how they want to deploy their assets out. We have something called a Values 360, where we will try to understand the values and interests of our prospective fund holders, and even our existing fund holders will sometimes open a fund and then we'll do a Values 360 with them. And that Values 360, at the end of it, after that exercise that we do, the fund holder has their own very own mission statement. So they really understand after going through, it's like a game. It has cards, it has values and interests. And now we're getting an online version of that up on our website for donors to be able to go in and look at that. But at the end of it, they have a mission statement. So they say, okay, I am interested in supporting Broward County animal welfare organizations. I want to engage my entire family in the process. And I also am interested in healthcare. And so my goal and mission is to elevate animal welfare organizations and healthcare organizations in Broward County.
Nancy Brown, who we spoke to last month, talked a little bit about that process. She's a fund holder. She's got an education scholarship fund that helps young people go to study abroad.
Yes.
She talked how that process was what helped her really focus in.
It forces people to really hone in on what are my values, what me as a person, and sometimes we like to do these with families too, because we like to engage the whole family, multi-generations in the process. So, but what are my values? Am I a caring person? Am I a giving person? Do I believe in integrity? You know, those sorts of values. And there's a whole many lists of different values. So you can hone in on your values, but also your interests. And people have so many varied interests, but by doing this process, the values and the interests, it enables the fund holder to really hone in on the ones that are most important to them. So in the example you used of Nancy Brown, yes, she was able to hone in on that specific program and process as being something that was very important to her.
Right. And it was the combination of education and travel that you were able to bring together in a really unique and wonderful way. Yeah. So people can kind of create something that's new and original to their own passions.
For sure, definitely. So you asked me a question earlier, and I may have gotten segued with all the talk about the end of year giving and the tax law changes. But one of the things that I really, really, really love about the Community Foundation of Broward and my role here, because I've done philanthropy in university settings with 2 different universities, actually 3. And, you know, sometimes I was raising money and it would come in and it felt like it went into a black hole. It was for scholarships or it was for research or it was for this or whatever. But here at the Community Foundation, we see the impact firsthand. So we're working hand in hand with the philanthropists and the nonprofits. We host events, we have gatherings, we bring together the philanthropists with the nonprofits and with the projects. And Nancy Brown is a good example because I was able to attend a luncheon where every year the students that travel abroad have a year-end luncheon with the professor that took them, the students, Nancy Brown, and then often some of us here from the foundation, and we get to meet the students and hear about their experiences, and it brings it full circle and it feels so good.
I can feel that reward, the inner reward that you get from seeing the impact of your giving. I mean, it's great when you can donate and you feel good about it, but when you see the results, I've got to think for the people who are getting benefits, who need food right now, who are, have lost or are going to lose their SNAP benefits, when they can go and get free food for their families and you can be there, or someone who has donated can be there and either hand them a meal or a gift card to see the gratitude on their face and the relief that someone gets when they've been helped and supported for something they truly need. That is really all the difference with the Community Foundation. You talk about families a lot. That's one of the things that the Community Foundation is great with, where you've got family funds or people who even have their own family foundation, and then they've brought it into the Community Foundation. How does that work?
So sometimes external family foundations will use the Community Foundation as a way to deploy multiple grants. They can create a DAF with us, a donor advised fund with us, in the name of their family foundation. And they can make one or two big donations to us in the course of a year. And then we will deploy out smaller grants for them to the different nonprofits. So it's less administrative burden for the family foundation, and they can have multiple grants going out with just limited administrative burden on their side. So that's one way that we work with family foundations. But just family philanthropy in general and why it matters is that by engaging the next generation, it sustains the value of the family across generations. When families pool their resources, their values, their vision, and their long-term commitment, it helps ensure that charitable giving is not like a one-time event or a one-generation event, but it becomes a legacy, right?
Yes.
So it transforms giving from individual gestures into sustained family impact over decades. And it's beautiful to see second and third generations deploying assets that were established by parents, grandparents, great-grandparents, and those resources are still growing today in an endowment and still impacting in good ways in Broward County. So it's really, really impactful.
I love seeing that when a family or a person comes in and they talk about, well, I first heard about the foundation from my parents and they had a fund. And, it's been 40 years for the Community Foundation of Broward. And they say, well, I thought about it and I decided I wanted to have my own fund. So now they're participating not only in the family fund, but also in their own, which I guess is a way for people to add things that they may be passionate about where other members of the family have other priorities. Do you have tricks when you meet a family for the first time and several of them have different ideas? Do you do a kind of family 360 with them?
We do exactly that. So getting together the different generations of families and doing like a values 360 with them and understanding that values and interests will span across the generations differently, right? So having the family sort of discuss and talk about what their interests are, what their values are, helps bubble up some common themes and common interests.
Okay.
So it's really important to do that.
I'm going to guess that probably brings the family closer too, when you've pointed out what they have in common, rather than, after kids spend their whole lives trying to separate themselves from their parents and find out, oh, we have way more in common than I realized, and I have become mommy and daddy.
Exactly. Some families don't really talk about money, let alone talk about philanthropy. So when parents are philanthropic, sometimes all of a sudden the kids are like, wow, we never even knew that this was happening, that there was this philanthropy that was going on and that my parents or my grandparents were making impact. So we encourage philanthropists to talk to their next generations about the philanthropy that they're doing. And maybe they don't want to divulge dollar amounts, but just the concept and idea of giving. There are some games, some things that you can do like around the holiday table to talk about like values and interests. And if you had $500 to give this month to charity, where would you give it or how would you deploy it? And just having some of those types of conversations as a family often sparks great traditions and more understanding of the whole family's values around philanthropic giving.
Yeah, I can still remember getting certificates when my grandmother would plant a tree in my honor for, I'm going to get choked up now, for a birthday or a graduation and thinking, wow, how cool is that? And then you see things on Facebook where one or two people have taken an entire countryside and one tree at a time have replanted the whole dry area. And you realize the impact that you as one person really can make. I would think that giving something like that as a gift for the holiday would be incredibly powerful and personal.
Right, definitely.
Have you had people you've worked with who've done that sort of thing, made donations on behalf of their children, or that was the gift they gave their kids?
Yes, in fact, we do have some fund holders that have established funds for their kids so that they will have the opportunity to be philanthropic at some point in the future. And that is actually a really good first step in creating that family philanthropy. You mentioned that sometimes the generations have different ideas of how they want to be philanthropic. So breaking off a piece of the family foundation or the philanthropic giving for the year and letting the kids decide by establishing their own donor advised fund is really impactful as well.
One other thing that we hear about is there are these estate sales when someone has passed, and I guess nobody knows what to do with the items that are left behind if it hasn't been directed in a will. I believe that's called complex giving.
Right. So that's a great thing about the Community Foundation of Broward is that we can accept complex gifts that maybe other nonprofits or organizations can't. So highly appreciated stock is one way that people can make an impactful donation to us here at the Community Foundation. And essentially, in general, if you're donating appreciated stock, you're going to have to pay capital gains between the cost basis and what you sell it at. But if you donate that stock, you get the fair market value on the day that you donate it, and there are no tax consequences to you donating that stock. So that's one way that people can donate stock and highly appreciated assets. The other thing is like real estate. So let's say that you have a house that you don't want to sell it for the same reasons, maybe tax implications. You can donate that house to the Community Foundation and any real estate, and we will take in that property and sell it at the fair market value. And then there would be very minimal tax consequences for selling that property. It sounds complicated, but the reality of it is that you can take non-cash assets or highly appreciated assets, whether it be stock, property, art, coins, cars, boats, yachts, you name it, right? And you can just donate it to us. It's one simple act of donating it to us. You get the fair market value deduction on that, and we handle the selling of it and all of that. And then when we sell it, the proceeds go into a fund in your name. And then you're able to deploy those assets out into the community for whatever you're passionate about. So it's really a win-win.
Okay. Well, I understand that December 31st is the last day to make a donation to be credited toward this year. And if it's an online donation, 11:59 p.m. on December 31st is the last moment that you can do that. So if you're hearing this before then, you've got time. If you are hearing this afterwards, you've got a whole year ahead of you to plan ahead. And I can tell you that if you contact Kelly Marmol at the Community Foundation of Broward, she can guide you through this whole process and answer the questions you have. Is there anything you would like to say to people, either as encouragement or gratitude for what they do?
Yes. No matter how big or small your philanthropy is, it impacts. It is so wonderful to see people that might be food insecure getting food. It's wonderful to see an underserved child that maybe couldn't attend a holiday event or a holiday function being able to do that because of philanthropy. It's amazing to see a senior that maybe needs to be out of isolation having the resources of a laptop or a companionship from somebody that's coming to visit and volunteer or, just sit with them. These are the things that philanthropy does. And it's just amazing the impact, big or small, that one can make through philanthropy. And before we end, I wanted to just highlight a few more dates. You mentioned 11:59 p.m. December 31st is the cutoff. And that is for donations via our website. You can donate online up until 11:59 p.m. on December 31st. If you mail a check, as long as it's postmarked December 31st, you're good. So you can put it in the mail, but make sure it gets postmarked December 31st. Even if we receive it after, which we would, it would still count towards 2025. If you wanted to wire stock or funds to us, we ask that you do that by December 22nd. So we have time to process that and sell the stocks and receive them into our account. And then any donor advised fund, so an existing fund holder that would like to make a grant recommendation, we ask that you do that by December 22nd as well.
Okay, so we have the 22nd and the 31st. And just remember, again, giving has value any time of the year, and spreading it out throughout the year helps the nonprofits to maintain their ability to serve our neighbors in Broward County. If people want to reach out to you, would it be best to contact you by email at the foundation?
Email at the foundation is always best, but they could also call 954-761-9503. And that is the Community Foundation of Broward's phone number. And they can ask for anybody in the Philanthropic Services team to help them with their year-end giving or giving any time of the year.
Or ask for Kelly and tell her that you heard her talking and were just so blown away that you had to make the phone call. And it's Marmol, Kelly Marmol. I'm so grateful that you are part of the Community Foundation of Broward, and the work you do has enormous impact in our community with our neighbors and with the people you work with, too. You're kind of the one who brings all the different pieces together.
Well, thank you. I'm really blessed and honored to be in this role as Vice President of Philanthropic Services. I get to work with amazing people that really care about the community with a great organization that we're really making such a difference for Broward County.
Yeah, it makes going to work every day a joy.
Yes,
Thank you.
for sure.
Thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for joining us on Bold Voices. You can learn more about the Community Foundation at cfbroward.org. If you look under staff, you'll see Kelly and a little bit of the background. You can find an email to contact her directly, or the phone number, as you said, 954-761-9503. And please check back with us at our YouTube page anytime for our next edition of Bold Voices. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you, Ellen.